We've been talking about UCLA and the fact that classes kicked back in on Thursday after the murder-suicide that left two people dead. An engineering professor is just so shocking. And then the student himself, the father of two children, and now so many people coming out and saying what is all too familiar. Geez, he was a fun guy. He was a nice guy. I can't believe it. So here we are in America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney, and joining us to talk more about guns and California and laws and would there have been any impact on this campus whatsoever is Edwin Walker. He's an attorney with the U.S. Law Shield, one of the top leading gun rights advocacy organizations in this country. Edwin, thanks so much for popping on. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
So at first blush, you hear this about California. Of course, all of us are wondering, is this going to be a situation where you have somebody who's gone off and they're shooting all over the place? You had kids barricading themselves in classrooms trying to figure out what to do for 2 hours, and then when the police were crawling around realizing what had happened, gave the all clear after that. But when you look at California's gun laws, do you think it would have impacted the situation at all?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the loss of innocent life due to any act of violence is deplorable. And, of course, the human race, America in particular, has had laws against committing acts of violence forever and ever and ever. So, all the bad conduct that can be done with a gun has always been prohibited. Murder, sexual assaults, aggravated robberies, aggravated assaults. All of those are already prohibited. And so California has taken the approach that those types of horrific crimes will be lessened in the event that you also criminalize the possession of firearms, what firearms you can possess, who can possess them, and where they can be possessed. But clearly, all of those laws do not prevent acts of violence. And in fact, if you were to just look at if laws regarding firearms possessions could prevent firearm violence, then a school campus in California would, in theory, be the absolute safest place that anybody could be, because California itself has very strict gun laws about who can get them and what kind of guns you can get. And then, of course, taking a gun, just the mere act of taking a gun onto a campus is a prohibited act. And so, therefore, if you buy into the theory that laws themselves prevent gun violence, then, like I said, this tragedy should have never, ever happened. But, of course, the reality is that, unfortunately, laws regarding gun possession don't prevent violence, and in fact, in some cases, they can actually exacerbate it. I mean, imagine that things could have, if we were all in the position of being that unfortunate professor who was confronted by an armed crazy person, wouldn't we all have liked the option to at least have a firearm to protect ourselves in that situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of a failure of the laws in that, unfortunately, the firearms laws only seek to disarm the law-abiding. Somebody has already decided that they're going to commit an act of violence, which, we all agree, 100% agree, should be against the law, such as murder. Then if you have a law that says, well, you can't even possess a gun, that is only going to seek to disarm the innocent party while allowing the party who's already decided to commit the most deplorable criminal act possible from simply, he just commits another criminal act. There's no dissuasion there at all.
Yeah, and, there's been this discussion, Edwin, as you know it, about arming professors, arming others on campuses, and it just spirals into a mad tug of war, as anything does with guns and laws in this country. Do you think we'll ever see that, where people, as you mentioned, what if that professor had the gun? What if you have conceal and carry weapons on campuses? What a difference that could make in certain situations. Do you think we'll see that ever across the board in our lifetime?
Well, I'm located here in Texas. And in fact, in 2 months, on August 1st, 2016, Texas will allow license holders, people who hold handgun licenses, will allow license holders to carry their concealed handguns into the buildings of college and university campuses. And so there are several other states that already have this law. Back in the last legislative session, the Texas legislature, this was a very hotly debated topic. The Texas legislature passed it. And so now a license holder will have the ability to protect themselves inside of a college or university building. And so time will tell. If you look at license holder statistics, I'm talking about in Texas specifically now, if you look at license holder statistics, license holders are the lowest group that are monitored as far as committing any criminal act. License holders are the lowest group that they actually keep statistics on, percentage-wise, as committing any criminal acts. And so since license holders are the ones that are going to be allowed to carry inside of college buildings, I don't anticipate that there will be a situation like this where a license holder will say, oh, my God, I've got bad grades. I'm going to go ahead and murder the teacher with my lawfully carried concealed handgun. I do not anticipate that happening at all. However, in the event that an unlicensed person, somebody who probably, in fact, is in possession of a weapon illegally, tries to do the same thing, at least there is now the possibility that there will be a license holder who is carrying their own handgun who will be able to possibly step in and prevent that. At least there will be a higher percentage chance of that happening than there is now, which is, of course, 0% of that happening.
So then Texas really will become the guinea pigs for perhaps this becoming broader across the nation, correct?
Well, there are some states that already allow this. Colorado, I believe, already allows license holders to bring concealed handguns into the campus buildings. But, yeah, Texas has obviously got more college students than Colorado does. They have bigger campuses. Most of the state campuses here in Texas are about the size or bigger than UCLA. You know, I'm talking about University of Texas, Texas A&M, even the University of Houston, I believe, has more students than UCLA does. And so these large state campuses where you are going to have a certain percentage of folks who are license holders, they will be able to carry now, and we will, in fact, see whether or not events played out where they are either stopped by license holders or whether or not just the mere presence of license holders will at least give somebody pause before they decide to go and commit an act of random violence on these inside of these college campus buildings.
We're speaking with Attorney Edwin Walker. He's an attorney with U.S. Law Shield. Edwin, when we have these arguments about guns and protecting ourselves and law-abiding citizens who it seems as though their rights constantly get bent in this argument over what has to happen in this country, what have you seen at U.S. Law Shield as far as people protecting themselves with weapons?
Well, it happens every day around the country with U.S. Law Shield members, where people will protect themselves not just against people, but also against vicious animals that are attacking them, vicious dogs. It can happen anywhere. We've had incidents that happen in grocery store parking lots, gas stations. Of course, incidents happen at people's home all the time, home invasions, people, trying to steal property out of people's barns, people's sheds, people's backyards. These types of acts of violence happen all the time, and people use firearms to defend themselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end in somebody's death. There are thousands and thousands of episodes where just simply displaying the handgun or pulling the handgun and pointing it at somebody will diffuse the situation, will either cause the individual to run off, to escape, or the person will actually be caught in the act and held for the police to arrest and charge. So a lot of your anti-gun advocates want to say that every time there's a gun present, somebody is going to get killed, and that just certainly is not the truth. In most acts of self-defense, there are no shots fired. It's just that the gun serves one of its intended purposes, which is to de-escalate the situation and just simply act as a tool that will protect the individual who's holding it. Many times it doesn't result in shooting, anybody being shot, but it does stop a crime from being happen and invariably will lead to the person being caught and prosecuted who is attempting to perpetrate the crime.
Yeah, that was my question. You answered that absolutely, that it's the dissuader, and you've seen that time and time again with U.S. Law Shield. And that's the great thing, right? You're hearing all these stories, you're finding out about that, and, of course, helping some people who unfortunately get caught sometimes in these situations where they were defending themselves, and then prosecutors go after them, correct?
Yes, that's the purpose of U.S. Law Shield. U.S. Law Shield is a legal services company that is solely dedicated to the protection of people who use firearms in their own self-defense, defense of others, or defense of property. And so, obviously, since the use of a firearm is so highly scrutinized and is subject not just to laws regarding how you use the firearm, but where you use the firearm, and in some cases, what firearm you use, there's always the possibility that in this tangled web of laws, that a U.S. Law Shield member may be in jeopardy of violating one, and that's the purpose of the Legal Services Program, is that folks pay a yearly membership fee, and in the event that they have a situation where they've had to use a firearm in defense of themselves, others, or their property, they don't have to worry about spending money on attorneys to protect them during this legal process because their attorney is already provided for because of their membership in U.S. Law Shield.
Wow, good stuff. Edwin Walker, thanks so much for spending time with us. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.